The killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a pee.
Why didn't Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can, honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how can he live with himself? How can his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be...
I mean
it'd be one thing.
Before Greg stepped in, Jimmy Kimmel probably thought he was just cracking jokes. But once Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson responded, the whole thing turned into a public takedown. Gutfeld brought the sharp humor, Tucker came with the hard hits, and Jimmy just looked completely overwhelmed. This wasn't some simple back and forth anymore. It felt like a full comedy collapse happening in real time. By the end of it, even the audience seemed too stunned to laugh.
Late night host Jimmy Kimmel is back on the air after taking the summer off. He's missed a lot. Kimmel says if you're not vaccinated, you shouldn't get a hospital ICU bed. But I'm not sure if Jimmy was being sincere because he wasn't crying. Anyway, it's just funny hearing someone say, "I see you," who nobody actually sees. Look, I don't want to suggest that Kimmel's show has become boring and predictable, but last night during the taping, people in the studio audience were changing the channel.
Jimmy Kimmel walked into another monologue acting like he still ruled late-night comedy, completely unaware that Tucker Carlson and Greg Gutfeld were ready and waiting. What followed wasn't a simple roast or a quick exchange of jokes. It turned into a total mismatch. Tucker came with the serious punches, Gutfeld added the sharp humor, and Jimmy looked completely caught off guard. Watching it all unfold felt less like a debate and more like a slow-motion collapse that only went one way.
Comedians are supposed to hold people in positions of power accountable.
Suck-up
Yeah.
to the people in charge.
Exactly.
He's their Praetorian Guard.
Yeah.
And it's like the self-hatred he must feel, because he wasn't always, that's my point. Yeah. I mean, Colbert has always been a hard partisan, talented guy, but obviously he's not a comedian. But Kimmel was a comedian. Like, how does he, I don't understand.
I don't know
how he can sleep.
He might buy into the narrative to the extent that he thinks it's morally wrong to joke about these certain topics.
But it's not just that. He's like pouring hot oil on the peasants from the parapet. Like, he's hurting anyone who challenges the king. It's crazy.
During another one of his late-night monologues, Jimmy Kimmel took another swing at Fox News, delivering his usual sarcastic jabs like he was the self-appointed referee of politics and culture. He talked down to the audience with that familiar smug tone, like a teacher trying way too hard to be funny. But this time, Greg Gutfeld was in the mix, and he's the kind of guy who turns arrogance into comedy material. While Jimmy tried to lecture, Gutfeld came ready to tear the whole act apart piece by piece.
If you are open up to being wrong, you're more than likely going to end up right once in a while. But these guys have been wrong for 8 years. They've been wrong for 8 years because they can't let go of their egos. It's true in the media. It's actually, it's true among the never Trumper Republicans. If you look at the sourpusses, it's an internal emotional feeling that why him, Trump, and not me? Whether it's like, I don't know, Bill Kristol or Jonah Goldberg. It's like, these are guys that were generally normal. And then their egos just kind of like, they just took it hard. And you got to let go, guys.
Gutfeld didn't just respond to Jimmy Kimmel. He completely tore into him. He didn't need a big production, a team of writers, or flashy setup lines. All he needed was Jimmy's overconfident attitude sitting right in front of him. One look at Kimmel's polished scripted routine was enough for Gutfeld to turn the whole thing into comedy fuel. What followed felt less like a comeback and more like a non-stop roast, with every joke landing harder than the last. By the end, Jimmy's act looked more forced than funny.
My belief that humor, these were humorless scolds who just didn't think our jokes were funny, and they thought they were offensive and they were being hypersensitive, and that's not the case.
No, it's not. You're going through the stages of realization.
The stages of realization. I eventually learned and came to realize that it's not humor. Humor is a vehicle for truth delivery. They don't like the fact that the narrative is being challenged in a way that's effective, and so they have to shut you up. And so that's what it's about. It has nothing to do with them being
Well, they don't
humorless
have limits.
schools.
They don't have.
And
Greg Gutfeld and Jimmy Kimmel were playing completely different games. While Kimmel still laughed at his own punchlines, Gutfeld came armed with sharp jokes, real numbers, and non-stop shots at what he mocked as Kimmel's formula, moral lectures mixed with viral YouTube titles designed to spark outrage. Gutfeld, who built one of the top-rated late-night shows with a simple setup and fast one-liners, delivered his response with total confidence. The wild part was that he never had to yell. His style was calm, controlled, and brutally direct. It felt less like a screaming match and more like watching someone carefully pull apart an argument piece by piece. And just when it seemed like Kimmel might escape with at least some dignity left, Tucker Carlson stepped in with a completely different energy. Calm, cold, and almost amused, Tucker approached the situation like someone giving a lecture instead of joining a fight. He framed Kimmel as a comedian who had lost touch with what made him funny in the first place. While Gutfeld brought the fire and sarcasm, Tucker played the role of the guy quietly breaking everything down with a smug smile and a few carefully chosen lines. He didn't need loud jokes or dramatic reactions. He simply laid out his points, stepped back, and let the internet do the rest.
I have a few names to add. CNN, MSNBC, CBS, the town crier. All outlets ignoring Biden's revolving door of gaps, his constant forgetfulness, weird rambling speeches being let off stage. All the while you told us there's nothing to see here. Meanwhile, any parent can see this face means you got to change a diaper.
Tucker Carlson broke down Jimmy Kimmel's evolution with the kind of detail that made it feel personal. According to Carlson, Kimmel used to be the type of comedian who went after everyone equally and didn't care who got offended. But now, he painted him as someone completely different, a polished, self-righteous version of himself who traded edgy comedy for safe applause and predictable reactions. Tucker's harshest point wasn't even about whether the jokes were funny. It was about why the jokes existed in the first place. He argued that Kimmel's comedy had become less about making people laugh and more about reassuring an audience that already agreed with him. While Tucker calmly laid out that argument, Greg Gutfeld came in from the other direction with non-stop sarcasm and brutal punchlines. Gutfeld mocked the entire late-night formula, firing off jokes so sharp they barely gave the audience time to recover. Together, the two created completely different styles of attack. Tucker made it sound like Kimmel had slowly drifted from rebellious comic to predictable commentator, while Gutfeld turned that idea into pure comedy fuel. Instead of one big dramatic collapse, they painted it as a slow fade into irrelevance, happening right in front of everyone.
Even the quote comedians, they were on propaganda duty too. Watch this.
He's also pushing U.S. intelligence to find evidence for this theory that the virus was accidentally released from a lab in Wuhan. That's his new angle to feed the wingnuts, to treat this virus like it was a conspiracy of some kind.
It should have never happened. This plague should never have happened. It could have been stopped. But people chose not to stop it.
What people? Tomorrow he'll blame the Spanish flu on Antonio Banderas.
Yeah. Imagine if you're a comedian and all of a sudden your cue card has all kinds of talking points from politicians and foreign governments on it. Don't read it. You degrade yourself and you become complicit in the greatest in history.
What made it hit even harder were the ratings. Greg Gutfeld wasn't just competing with Jimmy Kimmel, he was beating him badly. For someone who once dominated late-night TV, Jimmy suddenly looked stuck trying to survive on scripted applause and political monologues while Gutfeld kept pulling bigger numbers. Social media jumped all over it. Memes spread everywhere, with people joking that Tucker Carlson and Greg Gutfeld had become the most unexpected duo in media. Gutfeld brought the sharp comedy, Tucker brought the cold analysis, and together they painted Kimmel as a comedian who had lost touch with what made him entertaining in the first place. At the center of it all was one simple idea: comedy works best when it feels real, risky, and self-aware. While Gutfeld and Tucker adapted to the moment, Kimmel looked like someone still trying to play by old rules in a completely different game.
So these fellas are experiencing deep mental pain. And it's not just them. Journalists are now offering tips to deal with their disappointment, frustration, even fear. And I get it. That's normal after any loss. I'm still mad about losing world man to Johnny Depp. But why would people feel fear? Maybe because their only news sources are constantly telling them Trump's going to turn America into Nazi Germany. But you know who felt actual fear during the Biden administration? People who had to ride the subway or have to buy groceries.
As everything settled, the biggest irony became impossible to ignore. Jimmy Kimmel wasn't overwhelmed by louder voices. He was outmatched by sharper writing, stronger delivery, and personalities that didn't need to beg for applause. There was no big showdown or dramatic debate. Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson simply took their shots, made their points, and moved on while Jimmy looked stuck repeating the same routine. For years, Kimmel mocked people for not getting comedy, but now many viewers felt the real energy had shifted somewhere else. While Gutfeld and Tucker came across confident and self-aware, Jimmy seemed trapped explaining jokes and waiting for reactions that didn't hit the same anymore. And maybe that's what made it sting the most. They didn't even treat him like a serious rival. They laughed, landed their points, and kept it moving.
Dana, I'll start with you. It was a terrible night for women. Trump won more women. He won the popular vote. What are these people moaning about?
I don't know. I mean, today Brian Stelter tweeted that there was a talent agent who told him that a lot of members of the media are questioning whether they have it in them to cover another Trump cycle. And then they wonder why the working class is like, guys, you are so out of touch with what real work is. And also, they didn't really cover the Biden administration. They didn't cover the border. They didn't cover inflation.
To Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson, Jimmy Kimmel became less of a rival and more of a symbol of what late-night TV has turned into. What used to be goofy comedy and fun sketches now feels to many viewers more like political commentary with a laugh track. Kimmel especially became a target because of how much his style changed over the years. According to critics like Gutfeld, Jimmy went from an unpredictable comedy host to someone delivering serious political monologues dressed up as jokes. Meanwhile, Gutfeld built his image by doing the exact opposite: fast jokes, sharp sarcasm, and a style that mocks the entire late-night formula itself. To his fans, Gutfeld isn't just competing with traditional late-night hosts anymore. He's challenging the whole system they built.
There are a lot of people who are like on your side because they're for free speech, who are not actually for free speech at all, who are pushing, a very specific foreign policy agenda, for example, and using another issue to lower your defenses and let themselves into your brain. And I think that's really sinister, really, really, really sinister. And it's becoming more obvious now. Like, if you're for free speech, then you're just for free speech because you support the principle.
While some late-night hosts lean deeper into politics and serious commentary, Greg has gone the opposite direction. Fast jokes, sharp sarcasm, and zero interest in sounding like a politician. That contrast is a big reason people keep comparing him to Jimmy, whose monologues now feel more like speeches than comedy to some viewers. Then there's Carlson, who approaches the whole thing differently. He doesn't act like a comedian at all. Instead, he plays the calm observer, stepping in with sharp one-liners and critiques that hit harder because of how casually he delivers them. Together, Tucker and Gutfeld have turned the debate into something bigger than late-night TV. At this point, it feels less like a fight over jokes and more like a battle over what comedy is supposed to be. Kimmel represents the polished, political side of modern late night, while Gutfeld pushes a more rebellious, anything-goes style that openly mocks the establishment.
The job description of a comedian is not so different from the job description of a journalist, as traditionally constituted. Tell the truth about the powerful. Comedians are usually a lot.
The killer phrase was at the end when Kimmel said, "You just don't realize it." Because you see, he's smarter than you, and he needs you to know that. And his ego can't bear that there's someone out there more famous and more influential than him. I got news for you, Kimmel. The last time you mattered, Bruce Jenner still had a penis.
Why did Jimmy Kimmel live with him? Like, Jimmy Kimmel is a talented guy, and I don't think he's like an evil person or something, but he's made this deal where he just serves power and attacks anybody who challenges power. Like, how can... Honestly, how can he look in the mirror and say, I'm doing something honorable? Like, how could he live with himself? How could his wife sleep with him?
Well, it'd be
I mean that.
it'd be one thing.
Jimmy Kimmel eventually fired back, but to many viewers, the response felt more like a repeat of old material than a sharp comeback. The jokes about Fox News and Tucker Carlson sounded familiar, and the energy that once made his monologues hit hard just didn't feel the same anymore. Even fans started noticing that the spark seemed weaker than before. Meanwhile, Greg Gutfeld kept firing off quick sarcasm and non-stop punchlines, while Tucker Carlson played the calm critic, whose quiet remarks often landed harder than loud jokes. That contrast became the whole story. Gutfeld and Tucker came across confident, sharp, and unpredictable, while Kimmel looked stuck, relying on the same political talking points and safe late-night formula. At the center of it all was a bigger shift in comedy itself. A lot of viewers no longer wanted long lectures disguised as jokes. They wanted humor that felt spontaneous, risky, and entertaining again. And by the end of the clash, critics argued that Kimmel wasn't losing because people stopped listening. He was losing because the audience had already moved on.